The Sinaloa Cartel, often acknowledged as the primary and most influential illicit drug network in the Western Hemisphere, is an alliance formed by some of Mexico's most prominent crime figures. Working together, these members employ strategic alliances to safeguard their interests, utilizing high-level connections and corrupting elements within the federal police and military to maintain dominance over their rivals.
Mexico's Sinaloa Cartel is now dominating U.S. heroin market.
Sinaloa State has historically served as a hub for smuggling within Mexico, alongside being a key area for the cultivation of marijuana and poppy. The majority of Mexico's trafficking syndicates trace their roots back to this region, originally consisting of a small cluster of farming families residing in the rural parts of the state. During the 1960s and the 1970s, these families transitioned from the contraband trade to narcotics, particularly focusing on marijuana. Among the pioneers in large-scale marijuana trafficking was Pedro Aviles, who later introduced his friend's son, Joaquín Guzmán Loera, also known as El Chapo, to the illicit trade. Aviles met his demise in a shootout with law enforcement in 1978. Towards the later part of the 1970s, the various familial factions diversified into transporting cocaine for Colombia and Central American smugglers, relocating their operations to Guadalajara, situated in the state of Jalisco. Notable leaders among them included Rafael Caro Quintero, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo. Collaborating closely with the Honduran figure Juan Ramon Mata Ballesteros, they established ties with Colombia's Medellin cartel. Mata Ballesteros, who split his time between Honduras and Colombia, acted as the principal intermediary between Mexican and Colombian traffickers, particularly facilitating exchanges between the Medellin and Guadalajara cartels. These interactions laid the groundwork for the contemporary trafficking patterns, characterized by the movement of the large cocaine shipments via air and sea to Central America and Mexico, then overland routes into the United States. The audacity of the Mexican traffickers was starkly illustrated by their assassination of undercover Drug Enforcement Administration agent Enrique Camarena in 1985. Camarena's death marked the onset of the downfall of the Guadalajara cartel. Intensifying pressure from the United States compelled Mexican authorities to take action, prompting the cartel's leaders to flee. The remaining factions dispersed, establishing strongholds in different regions across Mexico. The Arellano Felix brothers established their headquarters in Tijuana, while the Carrillo Fuentes family relocated to Juarez. Meanwhile, El Chapo and his associate, Hector Luis Palma Salazar, opted to stay in the Sinaloa region. The conflicts between these organizations erupted almost immediately. In November 1992, El Chapo dispatched 40 armed men to attack a gathering hosted by the Tijuana cartel in Puerto Vallarta, resulting in the deaths of 9 individuals. In retaliation, the Tijuana cartel attempted to assassinate El Chapo at the Guadalajara airport in 1993, inadvertently killing a Mexican cardinal instead. El Chapo fled to Guatemala, where authorities apprehended him 2 weeks later. Paloma Salazar met a similar fate, being arrested in 1995. The operations continued under the direction of El Chapo's brother Arturo Loera, Ramon Laija Serrano, as well as Hector, Alfredo, and Arturo Beltran Leiva. Despite being in prison, El Chapo retained a degree of influence, communicating orders through his legal representatives. In 2001, he orchestrated a daring prison break and resumed a prominent leadership position within the organization. El Chapo became widely known for his multiple escapes and recaptures, further enhancing his criminal mystique. In January 2017, El Chapo was extradited to the United States.
Newly released video shows Guzmán arriving in New York in 2017 to face charges. His first moments on American soil after years on the run. The 61-year-old looking glassy-eyed and appearing to wipe away a tear. And while the conviction brings some justice for the cartel's countless victims, authorities say taking down El Chapo won't end the cartel or the violence.
His apprehension and extradition have triggered a surge of violence stemming from internal power struggles within the Sinaloa Cartel, as well as attempts by other criminal organizations to capitalize on his absence and expand their operations. Since then, an internal power struggle has emerged between Ismael Zambada Gracia, also known as El Mayo, and El Chapo's sons, referred to as Los Chapitos. Despite Zambada Gracia's continued leadership of the Sinaloa Cartel, local bosses within the organization wield significant decision-making authority, complicating efforts to gauge the full extent of the violence's impact on the group as a whole. Following the split of the Beltran Leiva organization in 2008, El Chapo emerged as the primary public face of the Sinaloa Cartel. Although he shared leadership responsibilities with El Mayo and Juan Jose Esparragoza Moreno, also known as El Azul. El Azul was purportedly deceased due to a heart attack in June 2014. Although speculation persists regarding his potential survival and continued well-being. The Sinaloa Cartel operates as a decentralized entity. El Chapo, El Azul, and El Mayo each oversaw their distinct yet interconnected organizations, collaborating within the framework of the cartel. Additionally, the cartel frequently delegates its operations in foreign nations and even within Mexico to local partners, adopting an outsourcing approach. The capture and subsequent extradition of El Chapo to the United States seems to have ignited an internal power struggle within the organization. This was evident in February 2017 assault on El Mayo and 2 of El Chapo's sons, allegedly orchestrated by Damaso Lopez Nunes, also known as Licenciado, who was once El Chapo's close associate. However, both El Licenciado and his son Damaso Lopez Serrano, also known as Menelik, have been apprehended and are currently in U.S. custody. With El Chapo's conviction in the United States in 2019, resulting in a life sentence, El Mayo, the sole surviving member of the Sinaloa Cartel original leadership, along with El Chapo's sons, Joaquín Guzmán López, Ovidio Guzmán López, Ivan Archivaldo, and Jesus Alfredo, collectively known as Los Chapitos, are now tasked with overseeing the cartel's operation. Despite this transition, the cartel continues to operate within its decentralized structure. In the year 2020, tensions between Los Chapitos and El Mayo intensified, leading to several deadly confrontations among their respective factions. Additionally, there were reports of the mysterious assassination of a former high-ranking Sinaloa Cartel hitman. In contrast, El Mayo's sons either have been incarcerated in the United States or are maintaining a low profile. The Sinaloa Cartel's influence spans from New York City to Buenos Aires, encompassing nearly every major city in between. Originating in Mexico's Sinaloa state, the cartel has expanded its operations to over 17 Mexican states and, by some estimates, operates in up to 50 countries worldwide. At the heart of the Sinaloa Cartel lies familial ties, with many of its members connected either by blood or marriage. However, the cartel often operates in a manner more like a federation than a closely unified organization. A pivotal moment occurred in 2008 when the core of the group, the Beltran-Leyva organization, broke away. Since then, the Sinaloa Cartel has forged new alliances, reconciling with former adversaries such as the Gulf Cartel and the Familia Michoacana. Additionally, it seems to have struck a pact with the remnants of the Tijuana Cartel. Drawing inspiration from Colombia's Cali Cartel, the Sinaloa Cartel has adeptly cultivated ties with Mexico's political and economic elite, mirroring a similar strategy. Its influence extends deep into government and security forces in the regions where it operates. While the cartel frequently favors bribery over violence and prioritizes forming alliances over confrontation, it remains willing to employ force when necessary, mobilizing its resources to assert control over targeted areas. Currently, the Jalisco Cartel, the new generation, stands as the primary adversaries of the Sinaloa Cartel. The cartel emerged from within the Sinaloa Cartel in 2010, following the demise of former Sinaloa Cartel member Ignacio Coronel, also known as Nacho. Since then, the Jalisco Cartel has rapidly expanded its presence throughout Mexico, engaging in a wide array of criminal activities, including international drug trafficking. Notably, the Jalisco Cartel has ventured into the trafficking of synthetic drugs and potent opioids, like fentanyl, a realm in which Sinaloa Cartel also operates. Whether the Sinaloa Cartel can reclaim its position as Mexico's most dominant cartel remains uncertain. Presently, both the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco Cartel stand out as the country's two most influential organized crime groups. recent years, the Sinaloa Cartel has found itself entangled in a series of violent turf battles. In 2012, the cartel emerged triumphant from a brutal conflict with the Juarez cartel, securing control over the Ciudad Juarez. However, the ongoing war with the Zetas, who have formed alliances with the remnants of the Beltran-Leyva organization in certain areas, have sprawled across multiple states in Mexico, including Sinaloa, Durango, Coahuila, Nuevo León, and Jalisco, extending even into Guatemala. While the balance of power in this conflict has shifted in various regions, the increasingly fragmented nature of the Zetas suggests that the Sinaloa Cartel is positioned to solidify its dominance within the Mexican underworld. Despite the incarceration of El Chapo for life, the Sinaloa Cartel has retained its status as one of Mexico's most formidable organized crime syndicates. Nevertheless, the era of large cartels in Mexico appears to be facing an uncertain future. As the criminal landscape in the country becomes more increasingly fragmented, the fate of traditional cartels and their potential adaptations remain unclear. Kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit the notification button and leave a comment.